So we've got something a little bit different today. Still a tier list, of course, the algorithm loves them, but we're going to do the UFC games tier list. Now, this isn't absolutely every single UFC game that's ever came out. There was a lot of games on stuff like the PS2, the Dreamcast, but ultimately they're just terrible and they don't compare to these other games. So I don't want to just add all of the super outdated MMA games and put them in the bottom. I also just realized that I've got chicken salad and chicken salad.
Just want to clarify this chicken salad issue, all right? You guys were just another fighter, just another 170-pound chicken, but now you guys are chicken salad.
But yeah, we're going to start with EA MMA. We're going to include all of the UFC Undisputed series, and we're going to include all of the EA UFC series. So games like Supremacy MMA and all those kind of like spin-off MMA fighting games, they're not on this list. This is licensed UFC games from like a decent enough era where I'm not just going to be putting shit like this in the fucking bottom tier. Obviously, EA Sports MMA isn't a UFC licensed product, but it's good enough and it's in this era to be on this list. So we will start with EA MMA, and EA MMA for me goes A tier, to be honest. Now, the game kind of took Strikeforce as their main licensee for, you know, who you are fighting against. It's a Strikeforce roster, but you've got a lot of people that ended up moving to the UFC, so it's a very familiar roster. It's not like you're playing with a bunch of people that, you know, are from a bygone era in Strikeforce. There's a lot of familiar faces in there. Randy Couture is in this game, even though I'm pretty sure he was still signed to the UFC when he did this. You've also got Fedor Emelianenko, which until UFC 5 came out a few months ago was like the only MMA game with Fedor in it. What I will say about this game is if you're seeing me put it in A tier and you're maybe thinking, oh, I've never played EA MMA, like how is it good? Because the EA UFC games aren't great. So how is this game any good? I'm going to link a video by 616 Entertainment, which is an amazing video. I recommend every single person go watch it. And it's kind of like a retrospective on this game. Ultimately breaks down the features in this game that basically make me think of it so highly. It had so many innovative things. There was like live events you could watch. The devs were interactive. Just please, if you're interested, go and watch that video. It's a great watch, and it might even make you buy the fucking game and check it out. You could fight in multiple different cages. You can go with a boxing ring. You could go in Brazil. The venues are genuinely different. You can choose different rule sets. You can go unified rules. You can do so many cool things in eMMA that you would never really see in a UFC game again, or an MMA game again, I should say. So yeah, EA Sports MMA, A tier for me. The only thing that holds it back, in my opinion, is the control scheme. I didn't really like the analog striking or anything like that, although I know some people love that. But even in a game like Fight Night Champion, I don't use analog striking. I use the face buttons, so again, I'm a little bit biased. But eMMA, A tier. Next, we're going to go with UFC Undisputed 2009, which was my first MMA game ever, I'm pretty sure. Ultimately, just the foundation of the UFC Undisputed games. Very clunky, you know, the roster isn't the biggest, the UI is kind of weird. Career mode is pretty simple. It's just like THQ. This was their foundation. This was their first game. You could almost look at UFC 1 by EA as the same sort of thing, just a foundation that the later games would then build on. UFC 2009, from what I remember of it, I'm going to put it in C tier. It isn't chicken shit by any means, you know, because it was a fully functioning MMA game and everybody enjoyed it at the time. Yeah, trying to play that shit in 2023 when you've got, you know, these other games on the list, it's pretty rough. Next, we're going to go with UFC Undisputed 2010. We're going to put in B tier. Again, very clunky to play now. Ultimately, not an amazing game, but interesting roster. They had Shaquille O'Neal do some sort of fucking partnership to be in the game. They had voice lines in the career mode, as in you would win a fight and then Joe Rogan would come and interview you and you could actually choose what you were saying. I know it sounds a lot cooler than it probably is, or it was. It sounds a lot cooler than it was, but it's essentially just how on the EA UFC games you can tweet at people. It was essentially just that. He would ask you to call somebody out. You could choose somebody to call out, or you could say a couple of different things like, decent career mode. A cleaned up version of UFC Undisputed 2009, but ultimately, you know, nothing groundbreaking, you know, definitely not A tier. But yeah, 2010 B tier. This is the first UFC game I kind of played online, and I used to get smoked because I was a fucking stupid ass kid. Next, we're gonna go with UFC Undisputed 3, and I'm gonna go chicken salad. UFC Undisputed 3, in my opinion, not to spoil the ending here, is the best MMA game that has ever been created. And to be honest, I don't think it's gonna get beaten ever. I mean, I would like to think it would, but when I think of EA holding the UFC series, I don't think they're ever going to be able to bring an installment that is better than Undisputed 3. And if some other company maybe makes like a 1FC game, even if the mechanics are great and it's a great MMA game, it just doesn't have the roster, it doesn't have the names. There's so many different little aspects of what makes an MMA game great, and one of those aspects is the roster, whether we like it or not. So until the UFC partner with a different developer team, I don't think we're ever going to get something that beats this. It's got the best grappling system. It's got the best animations. It's got scrambles. Like, I've played this game every single week at least. Or let's say this, I've played this game at least once a month since it fucking came out in like 2012. It's now in 2023 and I'm still playing this shit like pretty much every day at this point anyway. That speaks volumes. Stop when people say that Undisputed 3 is the best. People that haven't played it like to say, oh yeah, of course it is, nostalgia glasses, blah blah blah. Bro, if you're an MMA fan and you haven't played Undisputed 3, go play the game for like a week and I promise you'll go, oh okay, yeah, I was being fucking stupid. This is by far leaps and bounds the best MMA game. Has the best roster in my opinion. A lot of new UFC fans won't know a lot of people on there, but they will still know a decent amount of people. You got Chael Sonnen, you got Anderson Silva, Chuck Liddell, John Jones. You got so many legends, Mirko Krokop, Big Nog. You got Pride mode, which alone carries this game so much. It adds so many more hours into this game. Pride mode tournaments, the Grand Prix, you can do all of that. Has a pretty basic but enjoyable career mode, but the training games in the career mode are fucking pretty good. I mean, we haven't really seen it simulated since, If you want to get your boxing and your speed up, you would go on the focus mitts. Your coach calls out combos and you hit the mitts. If you want to practice your takedown defense, your coach throws a tennis ball, rolls a tennis ball on the floor, and you have to sprawl and throw it in back. There's legit real life implementation. It's very immersive. The training games aren't just land fucking 10 jabs, land 20 head kicks. It's actually like real life shit that are little mini games that are completely separate to the gameplay loop of the real game. And that shows that these devs actually put effort into everything. They wanted the training games to be enjoyable. I never simulate trading really. I mean, I do towards the end of a career, but at the beginning of a career, bro, I don't mind doing the training games. Other than the tire flip one, I fucking hate that shit. They also had a system where online, basically when a UFC fight is getting announced, they used to have like a big banner behind them with like their sponsors on and stuff like that. You can create your own banner in this game and have it behind your fighter. So like when you would fight online with your created fighter and shit like that, you could have this banner behind you and basically create a camp with you and your friends and then have the camp logo on the banner. Like, this shit was just way ahead of its time. UFC Undisputed 3 leaps and bounds above the second place, which you'll find out later on. But yeah, just an amazing game. THQ absolutely smashed it out of the park. Next, we're going to go with EA UFC. I spent so many hours playing the demo of this game before I actually bought it, just playing as John Jones and Gustafsson fighting each other 24/7. EA UFC, I think, goes... I kind of want to put it in... I'll put it in C tier. Yeah, I'll put it in C tier. I played this game competitively. Like the Undisputed series, I was pretty dog shit at when I played it back then. But EA UFC came out a little bit later. I want to say like 2014 or something. And by this point, I was like 16 years old. I could hold my own a little bit more. I knew a little bit more about the sport. I wasn't just winging haymakers. I understood how I should be fighting. And yeah, I played this at a high level. Fought some of the best players in the world. Lost, won. It was an enjoyable experience for me because I played the fuck out of it. But as a casual fan, I can understand maybe people wouldn't like this. The parry system was a little bit mad. You could like throw a shot, parry, throw a shot back, parry, throw a shot, parry. Like, it was literally like the Matrix when fucking Neo was like Like, I'm not joking, it literally was like that Dragon Ball Z shit, and then somebody would just mistime a parry, land a big shot, and you would go again. E-tier for UFC 1, not the best roster either, but some pretty decent. I mean, my mains in UFC 1 was OAM, who has just won $1 million at PFL and retired, so it just shows how long ago this game was. You know, you're talking almost 10 years now. UFC 2, I'm going to put an A tier, and I'm going to put it... For me, I'm going to put it in front of EA MMA just because I have thousands of hours in UFC 2. This was the game where I really kind of tried to ramp it up, tried to fight in like tournaments, and really was genuinely trying to become one of the best players in the world at this. Never got to the top level, but I was pretty decent enough to enjoy ranked all around, you know. The combo multiplier stuff was a little bit corny. It was a bit more arcadey than something like EA Sports MMA. And ultimately, I do look for realism in these games. UFC 2 wasn't really realistic, but it did reward patient fighting. Something that can't really be said for these newer games. You know, UFC 2 did kind of allow you to have a bit more of a style. You know, the footwork was a bit more important. I enjoyed UFC 2. Again, a little bit more arcadey, but amazing ragdoll knockouts. They added Ultimate Team into it as well. The CAF system in these EA games are just genuinely terrible. They've still got assets from UFC 2 in UFC 5, and there's not that many new assets. They keep just porting them over from each game. Fuck EA. I will give my thoughts on these next 3 games now. UFC 2, in my opinion, was almost the peak. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it there, because UFC 3, I'm going to put in front of EA MMA when it lets me do it, yeah. UFC 3, in my opinion, EA had it the best. EA had it basically almost on point. If they had a bit of a better grappling system, I wouldn't mind throwing UFC 3 up in chicken salad behind Undisputed 3. What is it with these third installments of the games? You know, EA got it right with UFC 3, right enough to where it was like, okay, so the future of this series is looking good, you know. UFC 3, the stamina, after a few updates, so towards the end of its life cycle, the stamina was decent. I mean, the stamina's always fucked in these EA games. I enjoyed UFC 3 the most. They had the rank system down the best. You know, you picked a fighter, you couldn't see who your opponent was choosing. That is one of my pet peeves with the newer 2 games. With ranked, you can see who your opponent's choosing and they can see who you're choosing. So if you pick a wrestler, they'll instantly go with a grappler when you should just pick who you want to fight as. UFC 3 kept Ultimate Team. I think it was a little bit less popular in UFC 3, but UFC 3, in my opinion, behind Undisputed 3 as the second best MMA game made, I would say. But I can't really put it in chicken salad because none of these EA games, in my opinion, are even close to Undisputed 3. But EA UFC 3 is probably the closest. Next, we're going to go with UFC 4. Honestly, the fact that I'm struggling to decide if it should go in front or behind of a game that came out 13 years ago should explain a lot. UFC 4, they have a competitive scene for this game, right? ESFL, people win money from this game, and there is so many exploits that it's not even funny. I don't know how, if there's any sort of quality control team for these esports games to be considered, yes, okay, people can play for money with this game. How the fuck did this pass that quality control test? The fact that UFC 4 and UFC 5 have that fucking free shot when you're exiting the clinch, like you single collar and as you're pulling out, people can land a free uppercut, which isn't a little pitter-patter shot. It fucking knocks people out, drops them quite a lot. So many different exploits, it's not even funny. UFC 4 B tier. Again, I have so many hours in these games because I'm kind of forced to play them. There's no other modern rostered MMA game. It's UFC 4 or nothing at the time. I'm so happy that I have a old gen console with UFC Undisputed 3. I just want to shout out my homies as well. All the boys that are working on Your Undisputed Forever. I will link the trailer to that down below. If you don't know what Undisputed Forever is, if you have a decent PC and you want to run you can run Parsec and play through that, but that's how they fight online. What I'm trying to say is you can play it through an emulator. Use RPCS3 to run Undisputed 3, and they have made a bunch of mods, including bare knuckle mode. They have a almost fully updated, but a very heavily updated roster with all the modern fighters. You've got some of the people in there making these fighter models are absolutely amazing. Shout out all the boys in the server, everybody that's working on that project. You know, they're all great people. Go follow them. Go support them. If you're somebody that likes Undisputed 3 but hates these new games, but you don't want to play Undisputed 3 because you don't want to play as fucking Rich Franklin, then go and download these mods. I couldn't recommend them enough. They're doing amazing things. They're learning new things every day. They've learned how to assign certain fighters to different weight classes. In 2 years, I think every code of this game is going to be cracked. I think they're going to be doing amazing things with this game going forward. So just want to plug the boys over there. They're all boys of mine. They're all very good friends. So yeah, shout out them lot. And then last but not least, we have UFC 5, which I'm going to put there. The fact that I'm not enjoying UFC 5 as much as I enjoyed EA UFC 1, I can end the video right there. I mean, that is a fucking huge red flag. How is your first game of the series equally on par, if not slightly better than your newest, on a Frostbite engine, all these bells and whistles that they put in the trailer? I do have a video reacting to that trailer. Obviously the game's out now, so my thoughts are a lot more rounded, a lot more complete. I enjoyed the game for about 4 days. I am still playing it. Every few days I'll hop on, play some ranks, but the game is just not enjoyable. I can put up with some bullshit in these games, right, and push through it because MMA is like my favorite thing in the world, and my second favorite thing is like video games. So I have to, you know, I can't not play these games. They're the only games I want to play sometimes, but fucking hell, I would rather go through the Chinese fucking drip torture method than sit and play UFC 5 for as long as I played UFC 4 and all the entries before it. I'm 25 now, boys. My attention span is not long enough to sit and play 10 hours of ranked of UFC 5 a day. Shout out all the people grinding on the UFC 5 content. I do want to make some UFC 5 content, or maybe Undisputed 3 content. Just some general like gaming UFC content. That is originally kind of what I wanted to do a few years ago, but I would much rather cover the real sport. It's just a lot more interesting. And yeah, little cheat code as well with having an MMA related YouTube channel is I can just do fucking nothing all day and watch fights and feel like I'm not just wasting my time because it's all knowledge relative to this channel. I'm also going to university next year for sports journalism. I am going to try and get in the MMA media scene. But ultimately, what I was thinking the other day, I was talking to my girlfriend about it. If this channel takes off before I start uni next year, I might just cancel the fucking whole thing and use the YouTube and the internet and the media side to get into the MMA media instead. So thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with anything, let me know. You know, I haven't utilized the chicken shit tier, although I really should. I'll tell you what I'll do this. Right, just to use every tier. And yeah, no surprise, Undisputed 3 is at the top, but that's just how it be. I'm gonna start putting some polls out on my page, on the YouTube page, so you'll see them on your feed, just with like, do you want this video or that video? I don't want to be wasting time and making videos that nobody wants to see. You know, I have some pretty weird unique video ideas, especially for tier lists, but I don't want to do like, you know, the fucking top 10 southpaws in the UFC if nobody wants to watch it, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. We're soaring through the 500s, almost at 600 subs. I mean, I think we're at like 550. So next time I upload, I'm sure we'll be near 600. So I might as well say thank you for 600. I'm also going to be putting another post out in the next few days for a Q&A for like a 500 subscriber special. So look out for that. If there's any questions you want to ask me, like, I don't know if there would be, but if there's anything you want to ask about the sport, about my involvement with the sport, like certain questions, you know what I'm saying, feel free. I will put that post out soon. But yeah, appreciate everyone watching. I'm very awkward at outros. My name's Harry. I talk about fights. Bang. There's a picture of some cursed image.